I'll be giving a little announcement at the end, along with hopefully some of you guys, about how charities can get involved with some of the work we do. Beth Ventures and Cast have been running the Tech for Good group for quite some time now. We've just given a little surprise, but never mind, we're on to the next slide. And yeah, it's been a hugely growing community, as you may have just seen. Woo, we're now over 8,000 members, 8,100 I believe, and that's about 2,000 in the last year, which is pretty cool, right? You're a part of an accelerating movement, so congratulations, you're on trend. Everybody wants to do good with tech, awesome.
So before we go into this, to ask who's actually in the room, we would like to let you know that we are streaming this live as well. There have been a lot of people who wanted to attend, but we unfortunately didn't have the capacity to host you all. So you can go onto Twitter at TechForGoodTV and share the link with the ones in your networks, but also help the ones that are on Meetup. Asking to be let in to let them know that there's a live stream going on. And if you are active on Twitter yourselves, please tweet along using the hashtag #TechForGood without a 4. It's poor as in F-O-R, not a 4. There are enough Twitter characters nowadays, so you can actually write it out. So it's all good. I have really strong feelings about this, you guys. As a treat, because we do have Ann Mei, who came all the way from the US. Great audience. We also have 5 copies of the Lean Impact book that she launched recently to give away. So if you are active on Twitter, again, you might be in to win a copy of Lean Impact. And 4 of the other copies go to random selected members who are hopefully here tonight. Otherwise, we might just give them away to So here's good luck. Just before we go on to who's in the room, a great thank you to Zopa for hosting us here. If you don't know who Zopa is, find out now by going to zopa.com. But we're really grateful that we can use this space as well to host as many as possible, and to enable us the space for you to network later on as well.
Cool. So anyone who has been to a Tech for Good meetup before will recognise this part of the time when we actually ask people to identify if they have come to a meetup before and then who they are, because it really helps not just us understanding who our audience is and who we're making these events for, but also our speakers who can then sort of maybe slightly change the pitch or tenor of what they're talking about. So if I could get first of all a show of hands of who has been to a Tech for Good meetup before. Excellent, okay. I assume the rest of you are all newbies. Well, that's fantastic. Welcome. Hope you come again. Spread the word if you enjoy it. Even if you don't enjoy it, spread the word. And hope all the ones that have come back continue to come to the rest of this year. This is a nice broad topic this time, but our general approach with the meetups is to have quite targeted topics each time. So it could be a particular type of tech that we delve into or a particular social issue. So do keep an eye out onto the meetup group, and if you're all signed up on meetup.com, you'll get the notifications when there's a new event coming up. So that's great. So who here in the room is from a charity? Could I get a show of hands for charities? Okay, not too many of you. Okay, how about startups or entrepreneurs of some kind? Quite a few, awesome. Any government policy people or? Oh, a few of you. You can make friends. How about more sort of corporate, big business? Reticent to admit that would be. It's okay, you're entrepreneurial as well, you're here, you're doing good. And how about funders? Even more reticence, okay, it's okay, you won't get jumped on. I think, is there anybody else? Any just interested punters that you're just not even sure why you're here, but you saw it sounded interesting and you're like, let's give it a go. Okay, there's quite a few of you, great. Well, hopefully this won't disappoint. And you'll learn something, and you'll learn a lot, by the way, from just chatting to the other people here. So just a tip, do talk to as many people as you can, because there's a huge wealth of knowledge in this room, and it's amazing to be able to tap into that. So yeah.
Before we jump into the first speaker, we had a few more slides in there, and at a Tech for Good meetup there's bound to be a technical issue. And this is it, you guys. But before we delve into looking into some future scenarios and discussing a few problems in 2019 and beyond that we need to tackle, and obviously government might be one of them. That pun had to come. We might actually ask you what you actually understand under Tech for Good, considering that there are quite a lot of newbies here. Any volunteers who want to come up with a suggestion for it?
What do you think Tech for Good means? Come on, be brave. Yes.
Using technology to better society.
Great.
Just society, or maybe also?
Environment.
That would do nicely. Usually what we define as Tech for Good, and the sort of London Tech for Good meetup has been running since 2008, I believe. And in that essence, it has evolved into becoming a sort of changing concept as well. But in its... Oh, Matthew is stuck outside. So if anyone wants to get him inside, thank you. So in its truest form, we believe that technology can be used to tackle social and environmental challenges. It's not always to be seen as the solution to everything, but it can definitely sort of pave the way to help us solve some of the biggest problems that we're facing today. And now we're going to hand over to Matt from Nesta, over there.
So Matt's going to start us off with a bit of a game, which is hopefully going to be pretty fun. Also, just to give you a bit of a heads up about the structure of today, we have unfortunately had notification from our third speaker, Cassie Robinson, that she's stuck on a train coming back from Newcastle, which is really sad. If you don't get to see her tonight, and she might not make it, unfortunately, then do follow her on Twitter. She's at Cassie Robinson, and she writes some brilliant stuff on Medium as well. So yeah, do check her out if you don't get her today. But we do have the lovely Matt from Nesta, who is heading up the digital social innovation work that they've been doing over the last couple of years, 3 years? 5 years, oh my goodness. So he knows a lot about innovation and Tech for Good all over Europe, and is going to do this quite interactively with us. If any of you have community announcements that you would like to give, we have a section at the very end of the meetup after our 2 speakers where you can hop up here, give a pitch for less than 1 minute, please, of any particular thing that you want to announce to the rest of this network and community. That can be something you want to talk about, that is a new product launch, it can be advertising for job opportunities or user testers or whatever it is. But yeah, stay tuned for that because that's your opportunity to broadcast to the rest of the group. Cool, and without further ado, over to Matt.
Hi everyone. So I'm Matt, I work at Nesta, which is an innovation foundation. I haven't come over from the US, I'm just down the road in Blackfriars, but very happy to be here and thank you for having me. So just building upon what either Dharma or Eddie said, I can't remember, there is a wealth of knowledge in this room, and lots of you probably know a lot more than me, so I want to spend a bit of time trying to kind of bring out some of that knowledge and get you talking to each other, but I'm going to talk for just a couple of minutes first. And we want to think about what the future of Tech for Good might look like. Oh, no, that's not me. Someone asked me if I was good at improv before, and it's now very clear that I'm not. So, yeah, we'll get there in a minute, I'm sure. Basically, I'm going to get you to talk to each other for a while and think about the future of Tech for Good after I've just spoken a little about the work we do. So, start thinking futuristic. What do people think about the future of Tech for Good? Shout at me, shout at me. What does the future of Tech for Good look like? Anyone?
Biggest financial opportunities.
Sorry?
It's the biggest
Biggest financial opportunity for who?
For businesses, because it's an area that's typically been ignored to
Do
date.
people agree with that? Put your hand up if you agree. And if you don't agree? Okay, cool, quite balanced. Lots of people are on the fence. Someone else, what do you think about the future of tech for good? Come on.
So talking about financial impact, you want to be able to, if you want to have social impact, so if you want to sort of have that edge that the guy over there was talking about, you want to be able to measure it somehow, which is an issue.
Okay, impact measurement, good. We're big on that at Nesta, so nice to hear. Cool, okay, we've got slides. Let's go. So for anyone who doesn't know Nesta, we're an innovation foundation based here in London. We back new ideas to tackle the big challenges of our time. And we do that through a variety of methods, through funding, research, policy work, and work with charities and the public sector as well. Over the past 5 or so years, we've been working on a project called Digital Social Innovation for Europe, which has been funded by the European Commission. We've been doing a range of activities, one of which has been kind of mapping what the tech for good scene around Europe looks like. So we've been working with partners from different countries around Europe, trying to understand what's going on, how it's grown over the past few years, what technologies are being used, what social challenges and environmental challenges are being tackled, and so on. We've mapped about 2,000 organisations and about 1,500 projects, which we know is nowhere near comprehensive. But largely we've been focusing on what's the current state of activity. With the project we're working on at the moment, we want to look to the future. So we are starting to think, what might the future of Tech for Good look like? What might we be doing with technology in 10 years' time to tackle the challenges we'll be facing in 10 years' time? What can we understand from the trends that we know today? Aging population, changing nature of work, climate change. What can we think the challenges of the future might look like, and how might technology be able to help us tackle those? So why do we explore the future? For some people, exploring the future is a kind of, what's the point? We can't predict the future. The future happens to us. At Nesta, we think that actually we can help shape the future. So the future doesn't just happen to us. The activity we do in our day-to-day lives, the politics that happens, the policies that are made, the activity that our companies do, all of that helps shape the future. And so we think by thinking about the future, we can make a more positive future. So first of all, by talking about futures, we open up space for creativity. We open up kind of a safe space where we're not encumbered by the day-to-day life of our jobs and our families and the delayed trains and whatever it might be. We can think a bit more openly, a bit more creatively. Secondly, it's an alternative to what we read, hear and see every day. So, on social media, when you're reading the newspaper, when you're reading the newspaper online, things tend to be quite negative and it's quite easy to get down, particularly in a dark, grey month like January. We think that if you're thinking about the future and a more positive future, you can help think about what a more positive alternative might be. And then finally, from there, it allows us to shape that better future and understand, or at least think about what we can do to build a more positive future. So at Nesta, we've been doing futures work for a few years now. We do an annual set of predictions for the year to come. And we've also done work on things like the future of healthcare and the NHS in 2030, and the future of skills and employment. So we think that by kind of involving the public in this, but also involving policymakers, we can help shape a better future by thinking about it and understanding what kind of direction we want to go in. So that's where I'm going to ask you all to get thinking. That's basically all I'm going to say. We're going to play a bit of a game. If you don't enjoy it, then forget I called it a game. It's based on a game created by an outfit called the Situation Lab, who made an amazing game called The Thing from the Future, which is a card game to help you kind of think about futures, not tech related, just kind of more broadly. So I want to do this firstly to get you in a future focused frame of mind, so to be thinking maybe outside the box a bit more creatively, away from day-to-day life. And then to also think about the future of societies, the challenges we'll be facing and how tech might help us, and also to meet you people who you're here in the room with today. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into groups and introduce ourselves. Small groups of kind of 4 or 5 people, which should hopefully work on the tables and sofas and chairs and stuff. We're then going to spend a few minutes thinking about the future. So while the research which we're doing at Nesta is kind of looking at a 10-year horizon, as I have found out while doing the research, that's really bloody difficult. And so we're going to stick to kind of a bit of a smaller horizon of kind of 1 to 5 years. And then we're going to spend a bit of time thinking about how we might be able to tackle some of those challenges we're facing and what role technology might play in that. It's a bit of an experiment, so that's why my fingers crossed. So step 1, I want you to get into groups of 4 to 5. If it's 3 or 6, fine. Try not to be with anyone you know. And then I want you in your little groups to pick a number between 1 and 4. And then what I'd like to do is when you're like in a group, put your hands up, and then when everyone's hands up, we can be quiet, and then we'll move on to the next bit.
Cool. Ready made.
Allow me to go into my group, and I will still keep you live as much as I can. Thank you so much to everyone who is joining in Say Sweet Bite. Love you to bits. Welcome, prosperous New Year to you all. And this is my first live coverage for this year. So in terms of education, this is education. You know, UK Africa Diaspora Forum. We love learning and sharing and educating. And also JNM 1000 loves doing that. So in terms of that, allow me to go into my group, and I'll come back to you shortly. Just welcoming every single person who is here today for that.
Someone just pick a number. So the number between 1 and 4 is what we're going to do to give a narrative arc to help you build your possible future. So the idea behind this is that the future can go in many different ways. Things could get better, things get worse, some things will get better, some things will get worse. We might take decisive action on some of the big issues we're facing, we might not. So we've got a set of kind of narrative arcs, we call them, which you need to bear in mind when building this future, which over the next few minutes you're going to be thinking about. So I haven't actually numbered these, but let's go across. Number 1 is an arc we call Grow. So this is a future where everything and everyone keeps climbing. Population, production, consumption. That might be good, might be bad. So that's, if you're number 1, that's your narrative arc. If you're number 2, it's collapse. Collapse is a kind of future in which life as we know it has fallen or is falling apart. So if you're number 2, collapse. Number 3, discipline. Discipline is the kind of future in which things are carefully managed by concerted coordination, perhaps top-down or perhaps collaboratively. And that's number 3. Finally, number 4, transform. Transform is a kind of future in which a profound historical transition has occurred, whether spiritual or technological in nature. So these are all obviously like quite long-term, but give you a little bit of a framing to think about what you'll be talking about over the next few minutes. Do you want me to read them out again, or do people know what they are? 1, grow, everything keeps climbing. 2, collapse, everything collapses. 3, discipline, things are carefully managed, either top down or bottom up. And 4, transform, a kind of future where historical transition has occurred.
Carefully indeed.
Okay, so step 2. This we're going to spend like 5 or 6 minutes on. Cool. So I'm going to put a few ideas for some kind of big trends and social challenges that I think are important. And you might choose one of those, you might choose something else. I want you to, as a group, decide on a social area, so it might be work, healthcare, mental health, climate change, whatever. And I want you to discuss, just as a group, over the next kind of 1 to 5 years, how might this challenge develop? What challenges might grow bigger? What challenges might we not be thinking about now that in 5 years will be massive? And then I want you to try and think around a specific future challenge within a kind of 1 to 5 year time frame that in the second part of the session we'll be thinking about how we might tackle it. So for example, you might, I don't know, if you were talking about climate change, one thing might be that in 5 years that we might have massive, we already do, but might have even more massive flows of migration from people in countries where there might be, greater natural disasters or flooding. or it might be that there's large amounts of unemployment of the current kind of middle manager professions, something like that. So we're going to spend about 5 minutes discussing that, and then at the end, try to focus on a specific future challenge. Is that clear? Awesome. Okay, cool. Go. Sorry, these are the future challenges that might interest you.
The future challenge, if you can't read them, some of the things they're discussing here. So to think through housing inequality, transport mobility, automation, disability, migration, discrimination, homelessness, food security, welfare, education, climate change, fraud, demographic change, human rights, healthcare, modern slavery, personal data protection, social care, mental health, justice, democracy, social cohesion, work and jobs, crime, corruption, fake news, disease, transport mobility, migration, discrimination, disability, automation, housing inequality. I've read some of the things that you can think through. So that's what's being shown on the board here. Human rights, I forgot that one. And of course, social care and digital social innovation, just to add on your list. That is why I love coming here. I increase my knowledge, I increase the networks, I increase to hear different people's perspectives. And I join different groups meetups. So try and find some meetups that you enjoy going into. And let me join my group. I'm going to join the government group here.
Started.
I was thinking create an area, yeah, and then think about what kind of healthcare challenges we think.
Can you see the board?
Okay, so work and jobs. Work and jobs. Work and jobs.
In an environment where everything is going on.
And then you kind of, so the idea of the framework is that you kind of think of how the challenge will develop within that frame. So kind of like that, that's probably quite a negative term, so that would probably be the antibiotics not working. If you think positive one, it might be where there's really concerted effort to develop new antibiotics, and then some other stuff.
Paying for childcare, the whole thing is completely ridiculous. We should have one of the parents working, the other person doing childcare, and that should be the norm.
Well, think about it this way. It's all on the news right now. Robotics, all that kind of stuff. Look forward into the future about 4 or 5 years. A lot of the manual labor jobs and the repetitive jobs are going to be automated. What happens to the workforce if you maintain the current demands of an 8-hour workday, 5 days a week? You're only
Just capturing David there, a good friend of mine, just discussing. He's chosen to discuss about work and jobs, and just capturing that. I'm gonna try and listen as well, so bear with me, please, everyone. I hope you're enjoying this, and this is about tech, so look it up.
I'm on film. That is a killer of. Don't worry about me. No.
So communities being educated so that they are able to push policies through by voting for people who are going to have a focus on climate change policies to get that cycle so that we are all at a high level and a day-to-day level, so micro and macro level, being disciplined in our consumption things which we contribute to.
How can we be disciplined in our consumption if our entire economy is based on increasing consumption, increasing
How can take that?
I think that's where transform comes in. Substitution.
What did you pick? You don't mind me asking, which one did you pick?
I was the collapse.
Okay.
I was a nice cynic.
I'm going to give you just 1 minute more and then we're going to move on. I know this is really difficult, but just have a chat, see what you come up with.
So just picking up on different groups here.
To make a society that's so accurate and consistent that they actually track every step they go.
Okay, cool. We're going to move on to the next exercise because I'm already running over with my time. Hopefully that was interesting. It was probably difficult. Sorry. Mouse it quiet. Thank you. It's actually, I was expecting it to be more difficult. So I hope you had some interesting conversations. You might not have got to a really specific challenge, but hopefully you've had a bit of a think about a future, whether that was in the context of collapse or discipline or transformation or whatever. So we're going to spend a few minutes now, about the same amount of time, which again I know is very difficult, but there's no right, no wrong answer. We want you to think about how the challenge which you've just been discussing and trying to kind of find as specific challenge as possible, how in that future, 1 to 5 years from now, we might be able to tackle that. So what might some of the responses be to tackle that challenge that we've come up with? And is there a role for tech? Is there a role for how maybe collaborative technologies, platforms, apps, or something more high-tech, drones, blockchain, whatever it might be, is there some way in which that might be able to help with the challenge? We want you to focus on the challenge and how it can be solved, rather than trying to think of a tech that you're really excited about and how you can apply it to the challenge. So focus on the challenge and think about what you might do to solve it, and then whether a technology would be able to augment that, to make it quicker, cheaper, faster, whatever. We're going to spend a few minutes doing that, and then we're going to, again, it's quite difficult, but just see what you come up with and enjoy yourselves. Cool, go.
And then one of the solutions is already moved to, which is collaborative. IBM. The floor is yours.
And while I'm actually listening to so many other peoples and groups, I'm also trying to bring in your life so you can also share to some of these ideas that are coming up. In this particular next chat is treats. It's different from the other one. So have a look at this one. This one reads big data, A1, quantum computer, Internet of Things, disease, digital fabrication, GPS/GIS, platform, P2P, blockchain, VR, haptic, social networks, biometric, AR, drones, digital ID systems, open data, machine vision, autonomous vehicles, robotic drones, AR, open hardware, voice tech, online education, data store, voice tech, crowdsourcing, algorithms, machine learning, digital fabrication, disease, Internet of Things, and some of them have repeated quantum computing. I'm trying to get closer, but I'm a little bit far at the back, and I hope just by mentioning those e-textiles, autonomous vehicles, some of the things I know, some of them I don't know, but just by mentioning it, I think it would be lovely to look into this. Pastor Lade, thank you so much for joining in. She is the founder of NUS. There's some quite interesting things over here, and I think our community will need to look at some of these things that are coming up. So let's think about it maybe in 10 years. So I repeat here, this next chart is big data, Internet of Things, digital fabrication, GPS platform, blockchain, P2P, VR, social networks, biometric, digital ID systems, open data, machine vision, robotics, autonomous vehicles, e-textiles, open hardware, online education, voice tech, data stores, crowdsourcing, algorithms, quantum computing, AI, disease, Internet of Things, big data, and of course digital fabrication. That's what is on this next chart. I will be I know I'm talking here with you, but what I tend to do is my recording will re-educate me with what he was saying, so I'll watch this later. And thank you to every single person who is joining from Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, America, and I'm just taking interest with what some of the people who work in government are talking about.
We think about 1940. Everyone's trusted to be a new act where who do we trust? Everyone's ready. Anyone can have an opinion about things.
Okay, I'm going to give you about a minute more, which again, I know is difficult, you might not have come up with an idea, but in about a minute we'll do some feedback.
And while we're waiting for that, let me welcome Bernard Amalu, Mheshimiwa Timothy Thiran, Pastor Lade, thank you so much for joining in. Jenny B. Leyero, Donald Igwebu, all the way in Nigeria. Say yes, Sweet Bites. Margaret Twist, Clive Lewis, many thanks for coming in. Silas Chikungo, all the way from Zimbabwe. Oku Opong, thank you for coming in. Sammy J, many thanks for coming in. And Elizabeth Koroma, all the way from Kent. Peter Bray, this is something you will take interest. Many thanks for coming in. Kadi Emadine, Fumi Ade, Wosi, and Louise Hoffman. I hope you find this interesting. Angela Goffman, thank you for the work that you do with these children, and I hope Wales is okay.
Thank you, everyone.
And Duncan,
we're going to do a bit of feedback now, so let's get back as a group. I know you probably won't have come up with your perfect Tech for Good idea for 5 years' time. If you had, then start developing it now and you'll be in the money in 2024. But I thought originally what we were going to do was do some feedback into Slido, but for reasons of time that's probably a bit difficult. I do want to say though, like just from our research side, we would love to try and capture some of the ideas that people have come up with and allow you to see what other people have been talking about. So there is a Slido link here at slide.do/3809, and if you do want to spend a minute go into that link and just typing in a very short sentence about something you've taken away from this conversation, an idea you've had, how it's made you feel, what you found difficult, what you found interesting, the ideas, like anything would just be really, really useful. And that will be open over the rest of the evening, and I think afterwards as well. So anytime you can just put something in. But I thought we might just spend like a couple of minutes, if anyone from the audience wants to share what they discussed, how they found that as an exercise, hopefully not, don't be too mean, and what their Tech for Good ideas were, what their challenges were.
I'll volunteer to go first. We were talking about climate change, a nice big one to get into, and saying that one of the successes in recent years, perhaps, that has been made is people's changing attitude towards their diets and not being so reticent to take responsibility and alter their diets to improve climate outcomes. And possibly reasons behind that could have been because there's more availability of alternatives to meat and dairy, but also some of the new technology advances like lab-grown meat is really quite interesting and exciting and winning lots of awards at the moment. So maybe our Tech for Good suggestion could be more of that, continuing that trend, more lab-grown foods that require less resource, land and water intensive systems to create.
Thank you. Someone put a deposit on a place at like Box Park or something for when we have the lab-grown burgers. Anyone else?
We had discipline as step 1, and then fake news we chose as step 2. And we started to worry about the fact that obviously fake news could grow a whole load bigger, and it's going to be really difficult to, 1, rule out fake news, but also create trust in the true news. So in terms of tech solutions to that, we talked about perhaps blockchain solutions. Like one of the things about the disciplined society was perhaps there might be more collaboration. Obviously that's a collaborative solution to perhaps validating those two problems. Then we started talking about maybe AI, like pattern recognition of what was fake news and what wasn't, but then it became a bit of a cat and mouse game because AI bots would be writing the fake news, AI bots would be trying to identify it, and it'd be cat and mouse. And then we thought actually maybe it'd be super low tech. Suddenly we'd end up with like only validating news that came from face to face with the person we trusted, etc., and it would go back to the Stone Ages. So we came full circle basically. But it was good fun.
Great. Can we do have time for a couple more? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, we talked about homelessness and some of the ways tech could help with that. And there was some, how do we get not just waste food to homeless people, but also waste heat, because I went on a tour and the guy, it was a former homeless guy doing a London tour, and he took us around the back of a hotel where he knew the swimming pool vents were kicking out the heat from the swimming pool, and it was all very comfortable in the winter tour. So how do we get that waste heat to people who need it? And then based off other technologies like What 3 Words, how do we give homeless people the semblance of an address so they can get correspondence, bank account details and stuff set up even if they don't have a permanent residence, and that residence they have may not actually be a house. So that was another thing that we talked about technology can have an impact with.
Sorry, I just wanted to say in terms of giving homeless people an address, a friend of mine is working on a project called Proxy Address that releases unused addresses for homeless people to use them basically. So, for example, there's a lot of streets in the UK that don't have a number 13 for obvious reasons, or unobvious, depending on how you think. So yeah, releasing these basically so homeless people can have a PO and an address. So check it out, it's by a guy called Chris Hildry, it's called Proxy Address.
What 3 words?
So we talked about unemployment, which is maybe not the most wacky topic, but important nonetheless. So to give some context, we had discipline. So thinking in an environment where companies are completely happy with automating away as many jobs as possible, maybe we'd see like huge amounts of unemployment, and how could we sort of protect against that? One of our group worked at a online education company. Quite a few of us were at a sort of coding boot camp. So we basically settled on increasing access to online education, but interestingly as well, maybe thinking about how social norms and maybe social change might come into that. Maybe expectations about like how often you should career change, and maybe how long you'd stay in a particular job, for example, might come into that as well, rather than just thinking about like what's a new education app that we haven't thought of yet.
Amazing. Take one more, or okay, one last one. Sorry, these are all really good ideas. I'm sure we can stay here for a very long time. Well, do we have one more? Anyone? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So we were also talking about unemployment, but from the perspective of mental health. So, we had the number 4. So if, everyone becomes unemployed, what happens and how can you prevent everyone from being depressed and not having a purpose? So we didn't really know if we could develop a system to offer therapy before people become sick or have mental health issues. Or we could offer a platform to make sure that people are creative, and this is a problem that's caused by technology but also could be solved by technology, which is kind of not making that much sense if you think about it. So yeah, this is the discussion we had.
Cool, well thank you so much everyone. I hope you enjoyed that and it got you thinking about something which you wouldn't normally be thinking about. Just to reiterate, if you can put it into the Slido, which I should go back to, that would basically do a lot of my day job for me over the next few weeks. So you will all get free crisps and drink from me after this. But no, seriously, we would love to. And obviously, if you go to that link, then you can all see what everyone else has been talking about. So we'd really appreciate that. If you do have any feedback, what you liked, what you hated, then drop me an email or anything else. But thank you, and I hope you had fun.
Thanks so much for this. Maybe don't send him any hate email. If you do have any particular feedback for him, please do let him know and help him flourish in his day job with giving him feedback on Slido. We'll share the links with the sort of community announcements, which goes out to the entire meetup group as well afterwards, so stay tuned for those links as well. And the sort of proxy address cheeky announcement earlier, that is exactly the type of community announcement that we'd like to hear at the end of the talk. So if you have something that you want to share with this particular meetup community, because we're so many here, which is really great, please do step forward afterwards. We'd really love to hear what you guys want to share as well. But for now, our next speaker is Ann Mei Chang. Woo! And as you might know, she has released her book Lean Impact and is on a mission to tell people how to radically innovate for the greater good and relentlessly go after greater impact for more people and society, planet, people and planet. So without further ado, Ann Mei.
Thank you so much for having me here today. It's great to see such an amazing crowd, and that was the perfect setup for my talk. So, now that we've been thinking about these big challenges, I'm wondering how many of you feel like we're just not making enough progress against these kinds of issues? Yeah? I feel that way too, and that's a big part of why I wrote this book. So I spent most of my career in Silicon Valley, and about 8 years ago decided to shift to spend the second half of my career in the social sector. And one of the books in Silicon Valley that's really captured the best practices of innovation that have really underpinned Silicon Valley's amazing success as well as rapid pace of progress is a book called Lean Startup by Eric Ries. How many of you have heard of Lean Startup? Oh wow, most people here, that's great. So, as you know, Eric talks about Lean Startup as a methodology to build products and services under conditions of extreme uncertainty. Now this makes sense for startup companies that are trying to invent new things. It also, I would argue, makes equal if not more for social challenges. Let's talk about uncertainty. There's uncertainty both in the environments we work in because they're highly complex, dynamic, intertwined issues that we're talking about. Also, there's a huge uncertainty in terms of the solutions. Most of these challenges, we don't have solutions that work or that work well enough. And so that's why we need innovation. We need to find better solutions. We need to methodologies like the Lean Startup to help us get there. And so when I look at how we tackle a lot of social challenges, what I often see is that what we really focus on is predictable execution. We create a program or a plan, we figure out how many people we're going to reach, and we execute to try to deliver whatever intervention that we have to those people. Now, if you think about it, this makes total sense if you have a solution that you know will work and you know can scale, and all you need to do is deliver it. So a good example of that might be vaccines. Like we have vaccines, you have a measles vaccine, all you need to do is get it to all the people that need it. We have enough money that governments have put up to be able to do so. That makes absolute sense. But for most of the kinds of challenges we're talking about, whether we're talking about combating poverty or protecting the environment or tackling social injustice, these are things where we don't have solutions that are good enough, where we have more questions than we have answers. And when that's the case, we need to take a different approach, one that emphasizes the speed of learning. And that, of course, is what the Lean Startup is, one book that has really talked about how to do this. And so, when I talk to folks across the social sector, everyone's talking about innovation these days because I think we recognize we need better solutions. And yet, innovation is so much harder when it comes to social good. I thought life was tough in Silicon Valley because it's so competitive and we're always trying to build better products and so forth. But coming into the social sector, it is much, much harder because we have all sorts of other challenges that we don't in the tech world. We have to deal with things like restrictive funding that make it very difficult to be able to experiment and pivot. Measuring impact is so much harder than measuring e-commerce transactions, and it can take a lot longer before you can fully realize whether you've made impact. And the whole notion of experimentation can just seem irresponsible if you're talking about working with vulnerable populations. And so I've talked to so many leaders who are working for social good that want to innovate, want to adopt practices like the Lean Startup, but they get stuck. And so this is why I wrote Lean Impact, is to go out and seek out those organizations that have figured out how to navigate these kinds of barriers and share their stories of how they got to impact. And so in writing the book, I was lucky to get to interview over 200 organizations, both big and small, domestic and international, across all different kinds of sectors, nonprofits and for-profits, who are all mission-driven. And I tried to find what was common among the most successful, who are making the biggest difference. And principles really stood out that I want to share with you. So the first is to think big. So one of the things I noticed coming from Google into global development is that in Silicon Valley, everyone's thinking big. All the tech entrepreneurs are carrying around their slide decks with their hockey stick graph of how they're going to reach 1 billion people. Well, then when you come to the social sector, we tend to plan based on constraints. We have this many dollars, we have this many people, we have this grant opportunity, this size and scope, and we think, okay, with these limited resources, what can we do? Usually we do some good, but they tend to be band-aids. We don't tend to think big enough to move the needle on challenges. Let me put this in perspective. So some of the things that we do in the global sphere, in the social space, is provide access to basic services like clean water, electricity, and sanitation. And over the last 30 years, we've made slow but steady progress on all of these things. And we say, this is painstaking, tough work because we're trying to reach people who are very poor, who are living in remote rural areas, and so it's tough. And yet, during the same period of time, adoption of mobile phones has skyrocketed to these same people in these same rural, remote areas, such that today more people have a mobile phone than a toilet. Now, why is this? I would argue there's a couple things that are different. One is that people really want mobile phones. I hear so many stories about how people will top up their mobile phone before they'll buy food because it lets them stay connected with their loved ones. Access, find jobs and other economic opportunities, stay connected to the world. And so, in addition to this being something people really want, there's a business model. The companies that build mobile phones, they sell them, they make a profit, they can plow those profits back into R&D to make better phones for cheaper. The telecom companies that offer airtime, they make a profit and they can plow it into expanding their networks and building cell towers in more and more remote areas. And so through the combination of their efforts, these devices are now in the furthest corners of the earth. And there's more mobile phones than there are people now. And so certainly not everything we do for social good is going to look like the trajectory of mobile phones. But I think we should take on the challenge to ask, how can more of what we do look like that? And how can we at least aim to get there? Because we're not if we don't. And so just to give an example of what this looks like in the nonprofit space, in the US, a nonprofit called EARN is focused on helping low-income Americans develop a habit of savings. They're a micro savings provider. And after 10 years, they were at the top of their field. They had 7,000 micro savings accounts. They were being awarded by their peers as one of the most successful. And yet the founder, Ben, one day woke up and he thought, you know, we may be getting all these awards, but there's 50 to 70 million people who could benefit. And we're barely scratching the surface. And so that night at an awards dinner, he stood up and he made this audacious proclamation that EARN was going to reach 1 million people in the next 5 years. Now, in 10 years, they got to 7,000. So this was a huge stretch to get to 1 million in 5 years. But by setting that goal, it forced them to completely rethink their model. They couldn't make in-person visits to every customer. They couldn't offer a financial match. And instead they had to step back and do this. And they ended up building a technology platform, one that they could reach a lot more people a lot more cheaply. And the first year after rolling out their technology platform, they reached 85,000 people, more than 10 times as many in their first 10 years put together. And so by setting this audacious goal, it forced EARN to really think bigger, to think about their problem in a different way. And it's something I think that many of us tackling social challenges, whether at a nonprofit or as a social enterprise or in an effort at a for-profit company, we don't think big enough in terms of the size of the problem. So the second principle is to start small. Once you have that big audacious goal, there's a temptation to just start executing and delivering as fast as you can, because after all, there's people suffering today, and there's real need in the world. So we want to do good, and we get pressure from funders to deliver results. But the reality is that if we start small, we can do much more over time. We'll make a much bigger impact. And the reason is, as I mentioned earlier, when you don't have a solution that you know is going to work, what you want to do is accelerate your pace of learning. And you can learn so much faster if you're working with 5 or 10 or 50 people, because that allows you to much more quickly and cheaply test something, iterate, learn, and improve. And that's how you get to a much, much better solution much more quickly. So in the Lean Startup, Eric talks about the build, measure, learn feedback loop. Right? This is essentially an entrepreneurial version of the scientific method. You have a potential solution, you build a prototype to test to an experiment, something he calls an MVP, or minimum viable product, so you can test your hypothesis. Is it going to work or not? Then you measure the results. You gather data. Maybe you test some of these audacious ideas we just came up with to see, is it going to fly? And then you learn. If it worked with a few people, maybe you can double down and roll it out to a few more, build a higher fidelity version. Or if it didn't work, you might find ways to improve it, or recognize that you need to pivot and take a different path altogether. And what's key here is the speed through this cycle. So too often in the social sector, we tend to iterate on the order of months or years. We run a pilot program, we do some kind of evaluation, eventually we get some information back, and then maybe the next time we apply for a grant, we propose a new, different approach. And it takes a long time, and so our pace of progress is really slow, and as the pace of progress around the world continues to accelerate, we're just falling further and further behind. And so how do we drive our feedback loops to go from the order of months or years to days or weeks? If we can do that, I believe we can have dramatically greater impact. And so when it comes to social innovation, in order to succeed and make a real difference, I believe we need to deliver on 3 dimensions: value, impact, and growth. So value is this something not only that people want, but do they demand it, come back for it, tell their friends about it? Does this really meet a deeply felt need? Because if you're trying to force people to eat spinach and they don't want to eat spinach, you're not going to get very far. But it's not enough that people want it. It also has to have impact. Does it work? Does it deliver the social benefit that you're setting out to create? And too often we don't ask that question. We're trying to do good things. We're trying to train youth to so that they can get jobs. We're trying to train women so they're empowered. But does it work? Is it actually making a difference? And finally, if it works, can it scale? Is there an engine for growth that will not only get us to some more people, but will accelerate growth over time so that we can reach something approximating the size of the need. And so let me talk about each of these. When it comes to value, we may have a great idea, we may be excited at our idea, but we have to find out if people really value it. And so another nonprofit called Care Message decided to focus on the issue of people who are suffering from diabetes. And they particularly wanted to focus on the low-income people who were going to free clinics. In the US, our healthcare isn't free normally, so that may not quite be the same here. So they focused on people who were going to free clinics because their outcomes were much, much worse. And they had this idea that maybe we could help get them better information by sending them text messages to tell them how they could better take care of their own health. But they weren't sure. Would people pay attention to text messages? Would they change their behavior as a result of text messages? And so they ran an MVP. Before they built a whole system to roll something like this out, they just manually decided to try with a few patients, going through friends and family, and just sent text messages to see how people would respond. They discovered that when they sent just very dry messages that told people what was the best practices and what they should do, people didn't really pay attention. But when they worded messages as if they came from a friend, of someone who cared for them personally, people paid a lot more attention. So that helped them figure out how to design this. They also learned that when people first got diagnosed with diabetes, they became really overwhelmed, and they just couldn't internalize information because they were just trying to grapple with having this chronic disease. And so it helped them learn that they needed to space out their messages, to give people time to really adjust to this new reality. And so these kinds of learnings, lots of experiments like this, helped them really figure out how to build a product that was compelling to their users, that people would pay attention to before they invested in building out an automated system. Now, impact is one of the things that can be really hard to measure, as I mentioned earlier. Because impact can be hard to measure, and it can take a long time to realize. One of the places where that's true is education. You can imagine it takes a long time to see whether if you change educational techniques, whether it makes a difference. So Summit Public Schools is a nonprofit in the US that decided to focus on, they decided to start a school with the goal of having 100% of their diverse student body graduate from college. So they started out, brought in all the best practices they could find, started running a school, and 8 years later, when their first cohort graduated from college, they were pleasantly surprised that their students did much better than average. They had done a really good job, and they were getting all this pressure to say, Scale, you should have more schools, this is great. But the founder, Diane, stepped back and thought, we're doing much better than average, but we're nowhere close to 100%. We can do better. But we can't wait 8 years to see if we change something, whether that's going to make a difference. I'm not going to wait that long. So she decided instead to build a culture of learning and a system for being able to iterate much more quickly into their organization. And so they set up a system where they could do weekly assessments of their students to see what they learned, do focus groups to understand what activities they were engaged with, get surveys from teachers to see what the teachers thought. And they started running these iterations for 57 weeks. They varied the nature and the duration and the mix of activities in the classroom, from teacher-led lectures to self-paced learning on computers to group projects to one-on-one tutoring to see what would make the biggest difference. And through these 57 weeks, they developed this revolutionary approach to personalized learning that's now been adopted by over 300 public schools across the US. And they never would have gotten there. If each iteration was 8 years instead of 1 week, it would have taken them lifetimes to be able to get to the kind of progress they have. And finally, when it comes to growth, I want to share the example of a social enterprise called Vision Spring. Vision Spring decided to focus on a 700-year-old invention that has been shown to improve learning potential as well as productivity, and that's eyeglasses. Now, a lot of times we think of innovation as it's got to be, some flashy new thing using new, cutting-edge technology, but eyeglasses have been around for 700 years, and their estimates are that 2.5 billion people need eyeglasses and don't have them. It's one of the most cost-effective things you can do to improve people's lives. So they set out to tackle this challenge. And they did what most organizations would do. They started in 2 geographies. They picked El Salvador and India. And they hired people they called vision entrepreneurs to go out and provide eyeglasses and vision care to people in those areas. And they came back with great stories of kids who were able to learn, of adults who were able to work again. And most nonprofits would be thrilled at this. They were making a difference, making a big difference in people's lives. But it wasn't enough, because they were losing money with every person they reached, and they would never be able to get to scale. And so they pivoted. Their first pivot is that they set up vision centers in more urban areas to provide vision care to much more affluent customers and take the profits that they earned to do outreach in the more rural areas. And so through this, they became financially self-sustainable. And so what could be better? You're a nonprofit, you're doing good, and you're financially self-sustainable. The only problem was that it would have taken decades, if not centuries, for them to expand their own infrastructure to reach all the people in need. And so they pivoted again. They decided to partner. They worked with a nonprofit in Bangladesh called BRAC that has a network of community healthcare workers spread throughout the country. And through their partnership, they've been able to reach over 1 million people. And through additional partnerships, they've now reached over 4.5 million people. Now, they're doing good, they're financially self-sustainable, and they've reached millions of people. What's missing? 4.5 million people is a tiny fraction of 2.5 billion. And they realized they still were not making enough of a dent. So they pivoted again. They decided that this was really a systems problem, and they set up a public-private partnership called the iAlliance to bring together eyeglass manufacturers and nonprofits and local governments to look at how do we change the system and make markets work to have eyeglasses be more affordable and distributed to rural areas for governments to take care of the vision needs of their populations. And an example of an early success is they signed an MOU with the government of Liberia to integrate vision care into their public healthcare system and public school system. And you can imagine now, as they look at this at a much more systemic level, that over time they might have hope of getting closer and closer to the 2.5 billion number. Now, there's many, many paths to getting to scale, and Vision Spring is only one example of a path one organization took. But what I think is really interesting here and unusual is they really focused on the size of the need in the world, that 2.5 billion number, and it became a metric for them to really judge their success and whether they were making enough progress and make decisions so that they could get closer and closer to being able to get there. Now, finally, the last principle of lean impact is to relentlessly seek impact. You know, we have a big audacious goal, we start small, we're experimenting, and seeking impact is really the path of how we get from the small experiments to the big audacious goal. And all too often, we deviate off that path because we get wed to, as the guy, I forget his name, the person who spoke before me said, we get excited about our solution. You know, instead of falling in love with the problem, we fall in love with our solution. You know, and that solution might be, we have a really cool technology we want to use, so we try to shoehorn it in. Or we have a design that we're proud of because we came up with it and we saw it do some good for somebody, and so we keep promoting that. Or we have a role of our organization that we want to promote. Too often we get attached to our organization, to a technology, to a solution, and we lose track of whether we're really solving the problem and whether our solution is really the best solution out there. And so we need to remember to fall in love with the problem. And to do so, to determine whether we're really solving the problem, we need to focus on the right metrics. We need to measure what matters. In the Lean Startup, Eric talks about vanity metrics, which are these metrics on the left that are generally aggregate numbers of the number of people you've reached or the number of dollars you've raised. These are the types of things that organizations tend to put forward when they talk about the impact they're having. But they're totally meaningless. You know, you can reach 10,000, you can reach 1 million people, but what does that mean? Did you really improve those people's lives? Did you make a difference? And even if you did, could somebody else with the same resources have done more? What really matters instead are these actionable metrics or innovation metrics on the right that are the unit level metrics around value, growth, and impact. Your acceptance rate or adoption rate, your conversion rate, your engagement rate, your unit costs, your success rate. When you optimize for these these unit metrics, those are the things that are going to pay dividends over time. And so innovation means testing, iterating, and optimizing around how do we deliver more on these things so that we deliver solutions that are more cost-effective, more scalable, and make a bigger difference. And so just to wrap up, I think that what we need to do when it comes to social good is raise the bar. If you think about it, companies are set up to make a profit. And companies are required by regulation to maximize shareholder value, to maximize their profits. And they do everything they can to be competitive, to make as much profit as possible. I would argue that if you're a mission-driven organization, whether you're a charity or a company or a social enterprise or a foundation or an impact investor, if you say that you care about mission, you should be held accountable and hold yourself accountable to maximizing your impact and scale. And what that means is to set those audacious goals, not be satisfied with good, but shoot for great. And that means testing, iterating, and optimizing around the value, growth, and impact of your solution. Thank you. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Raise your hand if you have a question, the mic will come to you.
Thanks, I'm Jacqueline. In Lean Startup or Lean Impact, are there any kind of principles or tools that help organizations kind of guard against unintended consequences?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Unintended consequences are a real risk in the social sector. You know, when we're experimenting with vulnerable people, the first principle should be to do no harm, right? And I'll sort of broaden your question because I get this question a lot. People often ask this question about risk and experimenting with vulnerable populations, and I think there's two dimensions we need to think about. And I'll use the example of vaccines here. So one is, how can we possibly think about experimenting on people who are vulnerable? And the first thing I'd say is, if we don't experiment, like we often focus on the downside risk of what might go wrong, but we don't focus enough on the upside opportunity or the cost of if we don't experiment. Meaning, if the first person never got the polio vaccine or the measles vaccine, there would have been millions of people who died. So we have to think about when we're experimenting, it's not just the downside risk, but what is the upside that we're losing out on if we don't experiment? So that's one side. The other side is your question, which is, how do we ameliorate the potential unintended consequences? And that, that to me is a lot of what this is about. That we want to identify the biggest risks, recognize that we may be wrong, and test for those risks in minimum viable products as early as possible and as small as possible. So using the vaccine example, before you give the first person a polio vaccine, that's a kind of dangerous thing to do. You don't want to just give it to thousands of people. You test in a petri dish. You test in a rat. You test it in monkeys. Then eventually you give it to a person. You give it to like one person. You watch them very carefully to see if something goes wrong. And then maybe you give it to 5 people. And you watch them very carefully. And you sort of tier up your experiments to take a little bit more risk over time. But when you start small, whether you're giving someone a vaccine or you're trying to do a training or trying to do something that you don't know there's going to be unintended consequences, if you do it with a very small number of people, you both can pay a lot more attention if something happens that you didn't expect, and you have a lot more ability to fix it if it does. Just as an example, there's a crowdfunding website in the U.S. called WotC. It sort of crowdfunds, raises money from people in the U.S. to donate to fund surgeries for people who are poor in developing countries who can't afford to pay for surgery. And when they first started this, they had no idea if people would pony up money for this. But they went out and they worked with a clinic, I think in Nepal, and found 3 patients who needed surgery, and they had health issues, so they were suffering. But they got them to share their stories. And then they found responsible for them. Like, these people that got their hopes up, they shared their stories, they really invested in this, and they didn't want to let them down. And so they put up their stories and they put it up on the crowdfunding website, but the founders themselves set aside the money to be able to pay for the surgery. So even if nobody actually, was willing to donate money, they were still going to cover these people. They couldn't have done that if they put up 1,000 of them because they didn't have the money for that. But it's just sort of a simple example. When you start small, then you have the ability both to make sure that you're taking care of the people that you're working on. Other questions?
I might sneak in one. Yeah. I mean, one of the key questions that you get, regardless of what type of organization someone belongs to, is how to create a bit of budget where you have the sort of scope to experiment and the scope to fail. And especially when it comes to the sort of charity sector, traditionally that there is not enough. There is no dedicated budget to it. You're quite lucky when you get a comms budget to actually talk about the project that you're doing. Have you come across any examples of organizations who've done it well, where there is a bit of iteration throughout the process, even before they scale up their processes? And if have you come across any funders who might actually fund those sort of initiatives as well?
It's a great question, and I think funding is the biggest challenge or the biggest barrier to taking a lean impact approach. I think there's two parts to it. One is that we tend to think of experiments and pilots that are too big. So one of the reasons that I think charities don't run pilots or do experiments as much as they should is that when they think about taking something on, they think about, okay, it's going to be like a year-long process. And so then it's a lot of money, it's a lot of effort. Not that it's going to be a day or an hour. So one is like, let's shrink down the size of the experiment to be as small as possible so it's not so daunting to fund. Because it's really about, hey, we're going to create this training. Let's take some flyers that describe the training in 2 different ways, distribute it among people who are our target audience, and see which one's more appealing to them. That doesn't take a lot of time or a lot of money. So, and then we can then we'll learn something, and we'll know how to target the training better before we spend hours and lots more money designing a training. So, so I think we need to think smaller or start smaller in terms of those experiments to make it possible. The other thing is you do need some funding eventually, and sometimes you need to run slightly more bigger experiments over time. And there are funders who are willing to provide some, more flexible funding. I think more and more of them are, and I'm working with a bunch of funders to encourage them to do more of this. But I also encourage people to push back on traditional funders. And I've seen this happen even with government funders, where you can push back and say, hey, whatever outcome you're trying to, issue a grant for us to do, in our proposal, instead of saying we're going to 100% do exactly what you say, what if we say we're going to do 95% what you're going to say, what you've asked us to do, and spend, just carve out 5% and say we're going to spend that 5%, figure out how to do it better. We're going to give you the best we have today. We're going to spend 5% of the budget trying to figure out how to do it better. Now, in that 5% budget, if you can reduce your costs by 10% or improve your impact by 10%, it's going to more than pay for itself. So I think you can make a strong case for that. And so don't have it be an all or nothing thing where you got to find, that holy grail of some funders who's just going to give us totally flexible money. You can work with more traditional funders as well to carve out an innovation window, even if it's like 1%. Like start somewhere, and once you start showing results and you start showing real learning, hopefully that will convince funders to do more of it. There's a question back there.
Yeah, it follows on nicely actually, because there's Nesta, who were up before, the guy still in the room. There he is. I went for funding, and they won't fund unless you have a very clear social impact that you're tracking and can show measurable change over time, which is great.
Go Nesta.
Except for the fact that we are a software platform for social care, and we make software to help with the care agencies deliver better care, but the impact that we haven't been able to measure quite yet is what is the quality of care? How do you measure the quality of care? Because it's very subjective. So have you come across other companies where they have an audacious thing that they want to have an impact on, but it's very difficult to measure?
Yeah, there's a lot of things in the social sector that are just hard to measure, like organizations I work with who are trying to improve democracy, for example, is another hard thing to measure. And one of the things I would say is that every every social sector organization I know has a theory of change for whatever they do. The idea of I do A and it's going to lead to B, it's going to lead to C, and it's going to lead to D, and it's eventually going to show impact. And part of what Lean Impact is testing your theory of change. You may not be able to connect it all the way to the final impact, but if you can show that the first few steps are happening, and some of the precursors of impact are happening, and that you're optimizing to increase the likelihood that impact will happen, that's a first step. And by optimizing those things, by the time you get to the long-term impact, you're more likely to succeed. And I think we too often let perfect be the enemy of the good. Like, we want to measure things, beyond a shadow of the doubt that, we have rigorous evidence that something works. And that's important if you're doing an academic study or if you're trying to prove something in a court of law, maybe. But when we're trying to learn, the threshold should be a little lower than that. What we want to know is, like, are we on the right track? Is this working? And we should learn those things first before we try to hold ourselves to such a high standard of, like, absolute proof. There's one there.
Mine's really quick. What's he? No, this isn't working. What's your biggest disagreement with Eric Ries?
We used to work together, right? Yeah, Eric and I actually worked together at a startup company about 15 years ago, before Lean Startup existed, and I think our trauma from that company put us both on this path. Because we were the exact opposite of Lean at that company. I don't know that I have a disagreement with Eric. I think we see fairly eye to eye on both the philosophy of Lean Startup, but also, I think it's more a difference in our experience. He's wanted to do something like Lean Impact for a long time, and we had talked about it way before the book was even conceived of. But he just didn't have the experience to do it. But he's been a very, he does a lot of stuff for social good in his own time. And so when I approached, I left USAID about 2 years ago when we changed our government, because I was a political appointee, and when I was trying to decide what to do next, I called up Eric and proposed this idea of writing a book, and he immediately was excited about it. And we've done some events together as part of launching the book, and I think it's very complementary to what he's doing. I'm not sure of anything we specifically disagree on, but I'll try and find something. So thank you all for coming. I think we're out of time for questions, but feel free to grab me if you have some.
Thank you so much to Ann Mei, and I hope you all got something out of that. I know I did. We have some brilliant food for thought there, some great case studies to chew on, some good bits to ponder for the next year ahead. So sadly Cassie still hasn't arrived, so we won't be able to have her tonight, but for some good nuanced thinking on this topic and many others as well, do check out her blog. And now we'll move on to the community announcement section, which as we have advertised, we are going to give everybody a chance to stand up, say under 1 minute please, of something they want to promote to this fantastic community. Do also mention who you are and how people can get in touch with you, because this is something that we very much need when we write everything up and share it with everybody who's not here tonight. And even for the people that are here tonight, they need to know how you can actually get in contact with you. Cool, so should we get everybody up to the front that wants to say something, and then we can just pass the mic along?
Yep.
This might be chaos, but come up. Well, the more the merrier.
While everyone is gathering, we might just make some cheeky announcements of ourselves. So, hello. So, we at Back to Green Ventures, as we might have mentioned at the beginning of the meetup, we are an early stage investor in Tech for Good. So, if in the first discussion round with Matt, you've come up with some really great ideas to do Tech for Good, or are already established early stage ventures, then please come find a few of my colleagues here. Show of hands. Who is from BTV? Yeah, over there, and over there, and myself. And we are at the moment looking for ventures and really talented teams who are using technology to tackle social and environmental challenges, and have our 14th accelerator program open right now. So do check out our website. It's bethngreenventures.com/apply. And if you know someone who might want some investment and lifelong support, because we're in it for the long run, please do let us know, chat to us, and visit our website. And there's another one from Cast.
You totally violated the under 1 minute rule. Okay, Cast is holding a series of free design hop workshops. If you are a charity or non-profit that is interested in all of the stuff that's been talked about today and wants to know how you can actually use tech in your service delivery to enhance your impact, then come along and get a whistle-stop tour of all the things you need to know, including some of the stuff we just saw, but in more sort of detail and about how it can apply directly to your projects that you're working on. Go to bit.ly/cast design hop, or you can see on our website www.wearecast.org.uk. Completely free, half-day workshop run by experts in this field. You'll get to meet some other people doing this stuff too. Get some introductions to funders as well that do these things in the UK. So if that's not a good enough incentive, I don't know what is.
I have a mic. I'm going to move over so that we can all fit. Hello, I'm James Smith. I'm head of engineering at a startup called Apolitical here in London. We are a platform that connects together civil servants and policymakers around the world. So policymakers and public servants, I've got my eye on you. And we're looking for a bunch of roles. I'm looking for engineers, developers to come and join the team at various levels. We're also, because I should say what else we're looking for, we're also looking for people to come and work on community support, external affairs, and design, and things like that. So if that sounds interesting, let me know. Yes, how can you get in touch? Our website is apolitical.co. Go and have a look at that. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Emma. I am the service design lead at Snook. We're a service design agency that works to make the world work better for people. We have jobs too. We're looking for experienced service designers and user researchers in London. We are approaching what we call the annual influx of projects that comes just before people want to spend all their budgets. So we have impending work in healthcare, mental health, and planning, as in town planning. If you're interested in working on any of those things or anything else and have good experience in this space, please do reach out to me. I'll be here for a while, drinking beer in a red shirt, or you can email me at Emma at wearesnook.com, and that's we and are as a word, and Snook is S-N-O-O-K. Thanks.
Hi everybody, my name's Kaylee McHale. I just wanted to start by saying thank you so much, Ellie and Dharma. What a wicked event tonight, and I've learned loads. It's been really interesting, thank you. So I work for a company called Mind Fury Digital, just down the road in St Catherine's Dock. Just joined there this week to help them kind of grow the business and really drive their vision. Really keen to connect with, and we're a digital agency / software consultancy, keen to focus on more tech for good projects and connect with people in that space. Also constantly hiring as well, so we're looking for full stack developers and React developers at the moment as a bit of a priority. And next thing is that I host U=Tech. I founded U=Tech, which I know, Dharma, I know you're speaking with Dania at the moment about, yeah. So next week we've got an event at Monzo on the 24th of January from 6:30. Look us up, U=Tech. Would be great to see some of you there. P.S. Monzo do addresses for people who, or set up bank accounts for people who've got no address, homeless community as well. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Joe from Schoolspace. I'm the CTO at Schoolspace. We also have jobs, mainly looking for full stack JavaScript developers, if there's any in the room. We're also hiring for other stuff like designers and customer service people, salespeople. What we do is we work with schools to generate them money from their spaces. So we rent out their halls, their gyms, their football pitches in the evenings and weekends. Basically, we make quite a lot of money for schools, and it's kind of just dead space, and we rent it out to community spaces and religious groups and other people that need or want to use that space. So yeah, my name is Joe. It's tech@school-space.org. I'll be around afterwards as well. And the final ask is if anyone knows anyone that works for schools, or if you work for a school yourself and you need to make some more money, then please get in touch with us and we can work with you. It's really easy, we manage everything and you'll make more money. So please get in touch.
Hello, I'm Bailey. So if everyone in the room is representative of the kind of general UK population, then 1 in 5 of us here will currently be experiencing poor mental health due to money worries. So that's 1 in 5. And I've worked in fintech for the last 8 years, and I can tell you that of the fintech apps on the market, I really don't think there's a money management app designed for those people. So I'm currently in the process of founding such an app. It's called Toucan. It's very exciting. I'm fully funded, which is also very exciting, by a grant. And I'm working directly with the Money and Mental Health Policy Institute, which is a lovely charity who do great research. I'm looking for collaborators and co-founders. My background is in product design, marketing, so I'm looking for people to come on board as a tech co-founder or in operations and finance and risk. I would love to speak to as many people as possible who care about this. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Bailey Talks, Bailey Talks, and I'm also my website usetoucan.com. Thank you very much. Toucan like the bird, so you'll find it. Bailey Talks. It's much more important to find me on Twitter. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Charlotte. I'm part of Zinc, the incubator trying to solve the toughest social issues in developed countries. My co-founder and I are working on Twitch for Learning, because as what we're doing today, getting together to learn something, right? But not everyone can afford to do that. So we want to make it easy for people to learn from each other. And currently we're looking for testers as well as a full stack developer. And you can find me at Charlotte at zinc-mission2.com. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rodrigo. Yes, I'm Mexican. You got the accent a little bit. Could you please raise your hand if you have heard of Eventbrite or Ticketmaster or used it for any of your events? Well, basically, we are an alternative to Eventbrite or Ticketmaster, a ticketing software. But proudly, I can say we are the first and only ethical ticketing platform in the UK. In Europe, there's only one in Australia. But ethical, I know, big topic. What is ethical? Well, the ticketing industry is disgusting, as you can imagine. Frauds, counterfeits, touts, everything. So we're just trying to do it the right way. You saw how many people were trying to look for tickets last minute, how many people, they were ill, something apparently is a flu tonight. And, you know, so it shouldn't be like that. There should be flexibility and all this stuff. And on top of that, we donate 50% of our booking fees to social projects all around the world. We're talking about from poverty to mental health to human rights. And so imagine one event, 5,000 people, 5,000 donations coming from our profits. Anyway, it's ticketpass.co. I'm the founder and CEO. So hell of a journey. But so if you know anyone that organizes events, or if you organize an event, it doesn't cost you anything as an organizer. Just consider it, just have a look, ticketpass.co. And if you know any charity, instead of donating it to an external project, we have over 4,000 projects, you can nominate yourself, so you can actually get paid to host your event on top of being free. So ticketpass.co. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sandra. I run a social enterprise called Find My Charity, which is promoting community activities for health and well-being. So we have a local magazine in Camberwell and Peckham which promotes different activities in the community, and we have a website which is mapping all the different activities so that people can easily find things in their community before they perhaps need to go to the doctor or statutory services. looking for some sort of help in developing the website, the mapping service, hopefully into an app. No funding at the moment, but in the next 6 months, hopefully that will change. So kind of just looking for any sort of help or interest or collaboration in that area would be great. Thanks. Oh, and my address to contact me is sandra@findmycharity.org or just at findmycharity on Twitter. Okay, cool, thanks.
I'm James, used to be an Air Force doctor, now work in the military's Innovation Hub. I suspect many of you don't put the word innovation with military very often. That's why they make me wear t-shirts like this to pretend that I have big ideas. Basically, if you're a startup or anything working and wanting to combat sort of, I don't know, climate change, fake news, or the well-being of our people in the Ministry of Defence, please get in touch. We pride ourselves on working with non-defence primes, so startups and things, and we've managed to get 12 startups fully funded contracts up to a value of 15.5 million in the last year. So contact us on @jhubdefence. That's where I work. Brilliant, thanks.
Hi everyone, and thank you to Ann Mei and Matt for such great presentations. I'm Asad. I work for an innovation agency called Brink, and we have a great new Tech for Good role that I wanted to talk to you about. We work on DFID's, or UKAID's Innovation Fund, looking at how they can apply drones, blockchain, machine learning, all new technologies to solve the world's biggest development challenges. It's an innovation manager role. It's the role that I have right now, and I can say it's one of the most fun, one of the most fulfilling roles out there. And you'll work with methods like the one Ann Mei talked about today. If you want to get in touch or you're interested, I'm going to be around later, and we're also on the Tech for Good jobs board. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Sonia Ritzel. I work for Catholic Relief Services, and I organize the ICT4D conference. That's a global event, so maybe more for anybody working for an international organization or who really likes to travel, because our next conference, it's the 11th ICT4D conference, will be in Kampala in Uganda from April 30th till May 2nd. It's worthwhile a trip. You will meet about 1,000 other individuals interested in discussing the use of digital technologies in international aid and humanitarian response. About 300 of those will be speakers, so it's very interactive. We'll talk about agriculture, health, financial inclusion, humanitarian response, water security, digital diversity, especially focus on gender and disability, information security, responsible data, and probably so many other topics I can't think of. So yeah, if you would like to hear more, get in touch. My name is Sonia Ritzel, so that is sonja.ruetzel@crs.org, or you can just look at ICT4, we use the 4D conference.org. Thank you.
Hi there, my name's Dominic. I run a social enterprise called Stay Nimble. We have built a platform that provides a digital career coaching and workplace performance service. We help, at the moment, 250 people around the UK to understand their strengths and help match them to new types of work that are growing in their local communities by ingesting jobs data. But as Ann Mei said, our ambition is to support millions of people to do exactly this as we enter the fourth industrial revolution. We are crowdfunding on Seedrs. We're currently 88% funded, and we'd love you to come and visit our campaign, leave us some feedback, and if you love what you see, please do make a pledge. We're building a crowd to help build employability for millions of people around the world. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Henry. I'm from, well, I work at the Makers Academy, which is a coding bootcamp. Anyone know Makers Academy? Want to give them a shout out. I'm actually here to talk about effective altruism London. Some of you might know effective altruism. If you liked that lean impact talk, a lot of effective altruists think about some of the things with a focus on big questions. some of the things we're doing include there are EAs in London helping DFID have more impact. So Rachel Bannister, who's the chief economist at DFID, spoke at our annual conference last year. There are EAs in Berlin campaigning for an animal-free food system. There are EAs in the Bay Area trying to positively shape the impact of artificial intelligence. Also in California, the Center for Election Science helping to make democracy better. So why am I talking about all this? Well, I want to promote another meetup, not because I think that it's better than this meetup or anything like that. Just an option that you should be aware of. We're Effective Altruism London. We have a meetup on the, I think, 3rd Tuesday of every month at a great pub near Angel called the Blacksmith and Toffee Maker. So Google Effective Altruism London if you're interested, or come and have a chat to me afterwards. There's also a new meetup we're trying called Doing Good with Tech, which at the moment it's a lot of software developers. So if there are any of you working in tech but are not software developers, you'd be super welcome at the Doing Good with Tech meetup as well. That I think is going to be every month as well, but on the first Thursday of every month. Yeah, thanks.
Last week and it was fun.
Woo! All right. Thanks.
Hello everyone, my name is Christina. I am Head of Programmes at UK Youth. We're a national youth charity supporting disadvantaged young people across the UK. Wouldn't it be amazing if young people were part of this conversation and could be part of co-creating what tech for good looks like for the world that we're ultimately going to leave for them? And so if you're interested in being involved in that at all, we run a whole host of digital programmes, kind of ranging from digital inclusion, how we include some of the most disadvantaged groups in some of these conversations, how we scale them up, and specifically we've just received some funding from Microsoft this year to look at building an accelerator for youth workers who we believe as kind of frontline staff hold a really interesting opportunity. They have access and trusted relationships with some of the most disadvantaged young people. So how can we skill them up and get them to become digital change workers in their frontline youth services? So if you want to help me build that, because I kind of need to design it in the next 2 or 3 months, if you think something you can offer that you think youth workers could help, if you could consult on what their organisations might need to help them use tech better, or get young people part of the conversation of what their ideas are for what tech should be. Yeah, come and look me up. You can look at UK Youth or just ukyouth.org, christina.watson@ukyouth.org, or just come and grab me after, or hang around and have a bit.
So I'm Dimitri from Open Collective. Ann Mei was saying earlier today that we need to have big ideas and to start small. But to start small, we need some support. So what we do is basically we enable collectives in the civic tech community, in the tech for good space, or even charities, to raise income and expenses in a fully transparent way. Most of the time, you don't know where the money comes from, and you don't know where you can expense it, and what the expense is all about. So Open Collective, we put that fully open and transparent, so everybody can see and knows exactly where it goes. Because with transparency, we can build trust. The whole idea also behind that is that you don't need a legal organization to do so, because we can act as a host, and therefore you can fully focus on your purpose, which is for the community, basically. So check this out. The website is opencollective.com. Have a look. Any question, feel free to reach me. My name is Dimitri.
Hi. So for many of you that don't work in charity or in the sort of third sector, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. It's challenging, but it's really rewarding. So if you'd like to you'd be happy to get a pay cut or something like that, and you happen to be a backend dev at the minute or a analyst, data analyst. We have openings at Shelter. I'm Matteo, and I'm a service designer there. We are scaling up the sort of digital team as well, and we really need people that are passionate enough and cannot, just want that pay cut really. Yeah, on LinkedIn, I think Matteo Shelter, you'll find me.
Hello, I'm Louise. I am from a children's charity, the NSPCC. I'm also going to try and flog you a job that's might have a pay cut for some of you. So we on the digital team, we've recently started a blog called The Digital Dunk, which you can find on Twitter at The Digital Dunk and on Medium. But we do have some jobs going as well, including one in my team. We work on some exciting things, like we've recently launched a skill for Amazon Alexa, and we generally try and build products for children to use via Childline or for adults to help prevent child abuse. So have a look at The Digital Dunk. Thanks.
Hi everyone, firstly thank you all for coming. I'm Dylan from the recruitment team here at Zopa. You may have seen on the slide in the introduction we're the pioneers of peer-to-peer lending and more recently launching our own next-gen bank to help people feel good about their money. Recruiting for a number of roles across all areas, product, QA, front-end, Java, just a few to name. So if you'd like to find out more about those roles or anything we're doing here, then come over and feel free to have a chat. Cheers.
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm a recovering humanitarian aid worker and co-founder of Fieldworks. We're building the largest global network of vetted non-profits, grassroots organizations in low middle income countries. If you've heard of Charity Navigator and GuideStar, we want to do that, but focused on those small organizations that never get a shoe-in. We're looking for someone to help us launch, set our platform up on Amazon Web Services, and a very good copywriter. Thank you. You can reach me at chris@fieldworks.info. Thanks.
Good evening, and thank you so much to Ann Mei, I would say. And first of all, thank you very much to David Renner for bringing me in here today. So my name is Juliet Makapila, and I'm known as, I love to say I'm the African Wonder Woman. And we create international and local community change makers. We aim to community educate with learning and sharing, and we invest in people across different nations to discover their true sense of purpose. Our community aims to transform lives, livelihoods, and share love with one another. Please join us. Our chiefess, we're looking to do some event in June, July. I'm looking for people who can really transform people's livelihood. I also want us to go for a retreat. So it's going to be a boot camp this time. Bring all your camp tents. So I'm inviting you at this opportunity to come together to raise the toast for all of us. Thank you. Yes, you can get me on at JNM 1000. And why do I call it JNM 1000? I call it JNM 1000 to embrace joy and live to the max. A toast for all of you. I want you there. No excuses. Thank you. And bring someone with you. Bring someone with you. So I want us to start organizing for this event. I'm looking for people who can tweet. I'm looking for people who want to make a better world. You've got to be willing to make a better world. If you're not willing to make a better world, don't come. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ariana, Ari for short. You can find me online as the photographer marketer. That's because my background is in marketing. Specifically, I've been a product owner for about 10 years now, and I've recently started my own business doing photography, which is a passion of mine, and I've got a big social focus on it to help startups and companies that want to do things for good and to help the world. I'm kind of blending my marketing knowledge with my photography passion to help businesses that want to do good. I'm currently getting my website up, so I can give you the URL, but you won't find anything on it. So probably easier to just look me up on social media as the photographer marketer, and then you'll get my website when it comes out, which will be very soon.
you so much. I think that is possibly the largest community announcement we have ever done in the history of the Technical Meetup. So thanks for all sharing your opportunities and brilliant ideas and selves. If anyone didn't catch any of that, don't worry, because we will send all of the written up versions round to everybody who came to this meetup and everyone who's not come to the meetup but is subscribed to the meetup group as well. So if you didn't catch something, fear not. Also, I should just say a quick plea from us at the Technical Meetup. We're also going to be sending around a survey to you guys in the next week or so, and this will help us move slightly further away from the enormous clanging vanity metric that we have been trumping of 8,000 members. We want to know, has this meetup actually made any impact and done any good for you? So even if tonight's your first night, please engage with the survey. Let us know if you've even just had like a helpful conversation, if there's been something tangible that has helped you move forwards, because that really makes a difference to us. And give us suggestions as well for future topics, future formats. We are all ears. We are constantly iterating, building, measuring and learning. So yeah, quick plea from me from that. And now I think
it definitely seems like that anyone here might get into a new tech for good job, even if you have to take that pay cut if you go to shelter. But if you are looking for more tech for good jobs, we have a jobs board on techforgood.global/jobs, where we advertise all of the roles that are mentioned here as well. But also, if you have a job that you want to put forward, get in touch via that platform as well. There are a few more community announcements that we had, but we will just share them around because there have been plenty. But last but not least, we're going to give away some of the books here. So I would like to ask Emma Parnell? Emma?
Is Emma here?
Emma, you get a book for one of your tweets mentioning Catherine. And now a trick question. Who wrote the Lean Startup?
Eric.
Oh, I can't tell who said it first. Who said it first? Yeah, there you go.
The audacity, I love it. You just gotta go for it.
I loved it. Thank you to David for bringing me here. Thank you.
Get the book to him.
Thank you.
One more. Who knows what the acronym, because we all love acronyms in this world, for CAST actually stands for?
Over there. Excellent.
Who was it?
That was an unexpected test.
There you go.
I'm glad someone got it right.
Who knows what B2B stands for? There you go.
God, you didn't expect to have to think so quick at the end of the meetup, did you? You're just like, give me the wine.
And who knows
alcoholic wine.
How many meetups we've done?
How many meetups have we done?
8,000.
No one's going to know that. No one's going to know that.
8,000.
8,000 meetups. Wow.
250.
We said what? Wait, what?
58.
52. We got one. What do we have here? 42. 80, 42. It's somewhere around the 40s.
We lose track. Yeah, we did an awful lot of meetups last year. This year we're going to be going back to once every other month. So stay tuned.
Do take it.
Next meetup is International Women's Day in March. We'll be collaborating with Mozilla for an actual afternoon meetup. So slightly different format. Hopefully you can all book your time off because it's totally worth it. And come and hear from some more amazing people.
And thanks again to Zupa for hosting us, and especially Lizzie, who's been amazing. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for watching, everyone. Bringing you all again, for everyone who's joined us here remotely on internet. Many thanks to Jeanette Sunderland for joining in, Princess Flora Tonya for joining in, welcome Karama Dabo, Wendy Nowak, many thanks for coming in, DJ Bangura, I know you love singing and you also love coming in on to educate the community, inviting you, Frank Agu, lovely to see you, Jos Karema, Nikesa Juma all the way from Kenya, lovely to see you Abu Bakar Bangura, lovely to see you. Many, many thanks for every single one of you who is watching here from wherever part of the country, wherever you are. I hope you've taken something from this. Learning and sharing is our spirit, and I love you all. I've won a book. There you are. I would like to read more about her work, so we are able to create change together. So that is a bit more about me for those who know me. Inviting you all to something that we'll be doing this June, July. I will be posting the post when it's all ready. We've got, and thank you so much to all the community change makers and community leaders that we've worked together. Really, really appreciate your contribution to the learning and sharing that you bring on board to many, many people. And of course, we are in it together, as I always say. On top of that, this year we aim to do perhaps 8 meetups or 9 meetups, not forums, I'll call them forums. We will have learning and sharing as we do. Our next one is going to happen hopefully in February, the one that we're going to be doing. We've just finished one on 29th of December, so working on something around February, then after that March, then after that we will have something, a forum perhaps around the next one, which is the June, July. We will speak and you will see me bringing you on board. Anybody that I call upon, I'm looking for change makers. I'm looking for people who really love doing good to this world. But on top of that, this time around, we're looking to upgrade and we're looking to bring in health and diversity and inclusion. That is what I'm doing here today. Many, many thanks. I will be reading Ann Mei Chang book to start me off with this particular year. Thank you so much to every single person who's watched here today, and many of you have never asked me, why do you do what you do? But I will be telling you very soon. And what is really, really most important is being who you are, doing what you were made to do, and that is important in my life. I embrace joy and live to the maximum. I want us all to smile, laugh, and be happy. Speak soon. I hope you've enjoyed watching that, and I hope it brings a different kind of aspect to many, many things that people are trying to do. And yes, it's a full house here today. Very, very nice place where we are here today. The beauty is next to, thank you. And look at her. Say hello, Louise. Here, thank you. Very, very nice people. They welcomed me. Thank you. Yes. And I tell you what, the outside of where they work, this particular meetup was really, really good. I don't know if you can see there, but there's a very nice background out there. So the people who work in here really have a nice special place. But thanks to the hosts, and thank you so much to Tech Startup here. You can find them. I will be tweeting these. I will download this video so that many people can be able to get hold of this particular video. So don't worry if you haven't watched from the start. I will try and download it by perhaps end of this week. So you will have a copy of this video which you can share and learn from each other. Learning from each other is a philosophy that I want us to learn how to do, because when we do it right, it really is great. And it's never a mistake to meet someone. It is always important to remember that. Until then, it's a good night from me. Many, many thanks again. Duncan Okello, you've just joined us, and Kadia Toyaye, you've just joined us. Please share this video so that many people can also benefit. Please share it. And until then, it's a good night from me. Juliet Macapilla, follow me at JNM1000, at JNM1000. You can follow me again at JNM1000. Someone is asking for my telephone number. Yes, my telephone number is, if you're calling from Africa, it's +44 77 423 84052. I repeat, +44 77 423 84052. In London is 077 423 84052. Also, you can email me, but the best thing for you to do, since you're watching, just give me an inbox and I will respond quicker. Or text me, because I do get quite a lot of texts from WhatsApp, and sometimes I can't respond immediately, so you'll have to bear with me. Until then, good night. I hope you've enjoyed to watch. Be you, Leave it in, embrace love, and pick up a book this year and read. In 4 months' time, tweet me and tell me which book you've read. Speak soon. Until then, at JNM1000, at JNM1000. Follow me at JNM1000. Juliet Makapila. Thank you. And also, thank you so much to the people who sponsored this particular event. That is something we always forget sometimes to say, but you can see these people have come together. Many thanks for all those people over there. And in it together. Love you. Shake someone's hand and please do comment. Bring in your comments so I can share this. Bring in your comments because there is something that we're supposed to do tonight. If you enjoyed watching this, please put your comment in and you can be assured that I will definitely feed it back to them. So please bring in your feedbacks as well. Many thanks, and the next one is in March. Hopefully I'll be here. If I'm able to come in, then I will definitely hopefully bring you in. I hope you've been able to learn something. Learn and share is our motto. Juliet Makapila at JNM1000. See you later. Bye-bye.